All right, let's get straight to it. 2014 Chevy Cruze. This is the 1.4 liter engine. Today we are changing the water outlet, and this is what your part should look like. So the old part is leaking from about right there, and that's why we're changing it. And you heard the fan just turned off, even though the car is off right now. It's because it's probably overheating. Only thing I did was turn it on and move it, so I don't know why it turned on that quick. But also when I moved it, I noticed the check engine light is blinking on this car. So this car has other problems. It's not blinking, but there it is. So the check engine light is blinking, so it definitely have other problems. So I'll be sure to let them know about that. The first thing we're gonna want to do is drain this coolant. So we're gonna have to get this car into the air real quick. So once you come underneath here, you notice there's some T20 screws here that you need to remove. Now, for real, you really only need to take out this one. Now you can see here it's broken on this, so I don't have to remove it. But if you take out this T20 here, then you can bend that flap down, and now you can see your drain plug. So this is your drain plug here, and you can turn that by hand, or you can try to use some pliers and you can turn that drain plug, and then the coolant will come out of this spout right here at the end. And make sure you have a container down here to catch the excess coolant. Let's go ahead and remove our negative battery terminal here. Just you can use a 10mm to get that loose, and then set this to the side. So while we're draining down there, we can go to the next step. We're gonna want to remove this hose right here. This is just a vacuum hose. So this plug, just push this red piece back, and now we can remove this harness. There it is. And once that harness is off, we slide it out of the way. And there's a flathead to get this out right here. You want to remove that hose clamp, or you can use an 8mm. I'm just going to use a flathead to get that out. So I can go in just like that with my flathead screwdriver. All right, I was able to get that rubber hose off, that plastic hose off, and now set it up top out the way. And now we can pretty much see the part that we need to change. This is our part right here. So if you want to get this out of the way, you can unplug this and set it out of the way as well. To get this plug undone, you can slip a flathead screwdriver in here and pry this, just push this piece right here on out, and then you can pull this plug out of there after that. So once that plug comes loose, there's another plug harness here that goes right down on the part here. That's a part that we're removing, so we have to get that one off. So all we have to do was squeeze this tab and pull up and off to get it off of that last and that third and last harness off. All right, now that we have the wiring out of the way, we can see our part now. See, this is the new part here, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3 bolts that need to be removed to get the part off of the actual block. And there's 1, 2, 3 hose clamps that need to be removed to get those hoses off. And then up here at the top, there's just a little clip you pull, and once you pull that out, you can pull this hose up and off the top of here. So there's three hose clamp connections, 1 tab to pull connection, and of course the 3 bolts to remove. And that's how you get that part out. So to get the bolts off, you're going to need an E10 Torx socket to fit over the bolts like that. But before we get those off, we're gonna try to see if we can get these hose clamps off first. Obviously, if you have a hose clamp wrench, you know, set, then that'll probably be the best thing to use here. But if you also have just a regular channel lock and also some regular straight pliers for different angles, then that can work as well. The top one is fairly easy, so I'm just gonna get that and wiggle that one off. The hose down here, I'm able to grab that one and just turn that one and slide it till it comes off. You can see a lot of coolant came out of there. That's on the opposite side so of where the coolant that we drained, so that was expected. Now this last hose is in such a weird spot, this hose clamp. It's actually blocking the oil filter cover. So it's a wonder, like, when was the last time they actually changed their oil in here, because you can't get this oil filter cover off the way this is angled. This should be angled more on top, but the way it's angled on the side is blocking this oil filter from coming off. So I'm trying to figure out how did they get this off, or maybe someone was just messing with this recently. But either way, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and take the 3 bolts off to get the part off. That way when I move the part, I'll be able to access this last hose clamp. So this is my setup right here. I just have a small extension on a ratchet and my E10 socket. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all 3 of these bolts out now. So once you get this part off the block, of course you're gonna have extra coolant that comes out of there. And now there's only 2 things holding this on. There's this piece right here on top. So to get this off, you just have to squeeze here. So you squeeze this just like that, and it'll push these 2 side tabs off, and then you can remove this. You can see just like that. And let me see, did that come off clean or did that break? So this thing is so old, it's probably, that thing probably broke anyways. So the problem with this is, with everything being plastic and aging out at the same time, everything is so brittle. Like, they should be changing this hose here and this hose as well. This hose that we took off the side, this hose is so soft and brittle. All of these hoses are going to be failing real soon. So I think I'm going to just recommend for them to change most of these hoses. They're going to have to change this hose here now, because this piece is so brittle, it's just falling apart, and it broke off inside of this piece, the old part that we were replacing. So now they're going to have to replace this hose that goes from the reservoir down to the top of the water outlet. But to get this piece off, that's all you would have had to do to get that piece off. And I would also check out the rest of the hoses and everything and make sure nothing needs to be changed out before moving on, because that can leave somebody on the side of the road stranded. But since we got that off now, the last thing we need to remove is this hose clamp here. So let's just get that out of the way and we can move on to the next step. And here you can see where the part failed. This plastic, after a while, gets so brittle. I mean, I really don't like plastic water housings and thermostat housings anyways. But this is what happens. And you can see something isn't right inside this coolant. I'm not sure who's maintaining this car, but it looks like someone may have poured oil or something down here before. This, see, you can see that doesn't look right. Or maybe oil is mixing. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Like I said before, I noticed that this oil filter couldn't have been taken off in a while. So who knows, maybe that oil down there is milky and mixed with something too, because this car is really running really rough. So hopefully there's not more to it than what we're seeing. All right, it's time to use this time to clean up around this gasket area here, the surface area that we need to put the new part back on. Because if you don't, then you may have a leak with all that stuff there not causing a good seal. So you can use Scotch Brite, or really fine sandpaper, or even if you're good with a razor, a straight razor, you can use a razor to scrape this off, but don't cause too much of a deep gouge into the metal. Okay, so I have the block clean, and it's time to put our new part on. So our gasket is in there, and so what I did was I put this hose on first. That way I don't have to struggle with it once I get down in here. I put that on first, and I made sure I angled it more to the side and upwards, so it's not blocking that that oil filter cover right there. So now all I have to do is line this up with these 3 bolt holes, and I can go ahead and get those bolts in. So let's go ahead and get these bolts in now. So now all 3 bolts are in and tight, and we have the main hose on there. So I'm gonna start from this. When I start, I'm gonna go to this bottom one next, right down here. So we're gonna take this hose and get this hose on. Now I want to get this hose on. Let's go ahead and get that on. So now we have all 3 hose clamps and hoses on. Only thing we have to do is our plug connection here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and get that on there. So I have that harness on, and I also went ahead and connected this one back. This was the one that just hang loose there. This one goes on here. So we actually have to get this back on first. So let's go ahead and get this tube on. And go ahead and press that on there. Alright, so that's on there. So gotta tighten this hose clamp down. But first, let's just go ahead and plug this in where it goes. So just like that, it clicks. And now we can go ahead and tighten down that hose clamp. Alright, so if you remember, this one here broke earlier. So we actually ended up getting a new hose, which is probably the best thing to do anyways. Because even if we would have been real gentle with this, and it would have still been time to change this, it would have just broken off into the new part. So let's go ahead and install our new hose. Pretty much one end on here, and then the clip end would go right here. So I was able to put this end on, and once I remove this, it's gonna tighten up on its own, just like that. So this was just a little safeguard to keep it open. And now the other end, it's very simple. All we have to do is clip it down in there, just like that. So it's nice and clipped on. So that's pretty much it for that hose. All right, so now that we're done up top, we're gonna come back down here and close our drain valve on our radiator. And of course, once we're done with that, we're gonna put this flap back up and put our Torx screw back in. And just like that. Let's come back up top and put our negative battery terminal back on. Let's tighten this back down with the 10mm. All right, so that's it. We pretty much have everything tightened back up, and we have this new hose on as well. And of course, our new part is on down there. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for tuning in.